This conference will now be recorded.
Hi all, good morning, good evening. Welcome to day one of JMeter Beginner to Master, the Groovy, Dynatrace, Kubernetes, Docker, InfluxDB, Grafana, Jenkins, and BlazeMeter. So yesterday we had the demo session for our exclusive training which I just mentioned. So today is our day one. Yesterday we have gone through the course curriculum which we are going to cover as part of this training. Today I'm going to start with the topics like the performance testing basics, so the performance testing introduction. Before that, I'd just like to ask if anyone has any queries. Anyone any queries? Perfect. So we are good to start. Let me start sharing my screen and we'll proceed. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, Chandra.
Perfect, thanks. So coming to the introduction guys, okay, I am going to show you some pointers, okay, and those pointers will point you to some type of testing. Most of you would be from the testing background, right? So some pointers I'm going to show you, or some events which I'm going to show you, they will basically point us to the type of testing which we need to do to cover those points, or to validate those points, or to verify those points. In testing, the main objective is to validate and verify, right? Validate and verify. So the first one guys, if you see here, the day when the results of the different examinations get published, right, on the day when the university examinations or any school boards, secondary school boards, higher secondary boards, the results get published on the websites. Those who are familiar with Indian railway system, tatkal ticket booking, right? So it is a tedious task. So tatkal ticket booking is one event which is very important in the life of people, but yes, that is still a very difficult job to do or to get success. E-commerce applications festive sale. So whenever any festivals come, our so-called e-commerce applications, they come up with different sales, they come up with different offers. Whether those offers are really good offers for the customers or not, that is a debatable thing, but I would not like to go into that. Our objective is regarding the sale which comes in the different e-commerce applications. Okay, then some next points. When I am going to develop any application, when I am going to deploy that application into production, so whenever a project is getting developed, a project is getting delivered, so what does that mean? It means that it will be deployed in the production finally. It will be deployed in the production finally. So the question to be answered is my infrastructure going to work in production or not? Clear? In case there is an earthquake, or in case there is a natural calamity, how my data center operations are going to continue? How my data center operations are going to continue? Next, some points. The application which I am developing, the application which is going to be deployed in production, can that application be hacked? Can that application be hacked? Okay. Similarly, data security breach. Can the data security, so the security of my application, can the data security of my application be breached? Malware. Can any malware be introduced into my application? Can any malware be introduced into my application? Next question is, will the application be compatible with different browsers? Will my application be compatible with different browsers? Can my application be accessed by differently abled persons, physically handicapped persons, or specially abled persons? Are you getting me? So these are some of the questions. If we try to think over it, we have to do some kind of testing to validate and verify each of those points, guys. So the question to be asked is, what kind of testing are they? In order to verify these points, what kind of testing needs to be done? I'll like to open the forum to you all. Any thoughts, anyone on this? Anyone, any thoughts? Or have you been involved in any type of this testing previously? Or these terms are, or these pointers are completely, bouncing on your head, or they're completely new to you? Any thoughts, anyone? Anyone? No thoughts? Please unmute yourself and, you know, speak.
Performance testing and as well as the security testing.
Okay, performance testing and security testing. Okay, good. Any other thoughts, anyone?
Browser compatibility testing.
Perfect. So we have good testers here, guys. Any other testing types you think?
Load testing.
No, load testing is a category of performance testing. Okay. Yeah. Any other
Disaster
thoughts?
recovery. Disaster recovery test.
Okay. Good one. Good one. Okay.
Cross
Accessibility.
Any
browser.
cross browser is nothing but browser compatibility. That is what I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Accessibility testing.
Perfect. Accessibility testing. So guys, I'm very glad, we have different variety of testers, I believe. Otherwise, you would not be knowing these terms, in fact. Right? So as you all have told the different types of testing. Now, can anyone tell me these type of testing fall into the category of functional testing, or we have another testing space known as the non-functional testing? Anyone?
Functional.
Functional?
Non-functional testing.
Non-functional.
Non-functional.
Non-functional. Perfect. All these categories which I told you, right? All these pointers which I told you, over here, see guys, we are not verifying the functionality. Can I say here in the results, in the point which I have mentioned, day of exam results publication, I want to check whether my results are getting published for all the users or not. Whether the results are getting published correctly or not, that is not my objective. Similarly, Tatkal ticket booking, whether when all the users who have logged in, how much percentage of users are able to log in or are able to book their tickets. Whether ticket booking is happening or not during the functional flow, that is different thing. Understood? So I am not verifying my functionality here. I'm not checking whether my business flow is working or not. Rather, I'm checking the non-functionality point of view. So these points which I have mentioned, they point me to different types of non-functional testing. Any queries, anyone, or are all of you clear till now? Any queries, anyone? So the different types of non-functional testing, you all have covered 4 types at least. So the first one is performance testing, right? The points which I mentioned about the day of your exam results publication, your Tatkal ticket booking, your festive sales on e-commerce applications, the, the testing which I will focus on during those days or for those events is basically my performance testing. I heard one answer known as disaster recovery. Now, disaster recovery is again a subset of one superset. which is known as site reliability testing, guys. Site reliability testing, or it can also be called as operational readiness testing. Operational readiness testing, or it can also be called as operational acceptance testing. Clear? So disaster recovery, resilience, okay, failover. So these are the chaos engineering, you must have heard, right? Chaos testing. These are the different types of testing which is normally done to validate the your site reliability. Site means your infrastructure reliability. Understood? The infrastructure on which you are going to host your applications, you are verifying the reliability of those sites. Next one, security testing. I think this was also answered, right? Like, can my application be hacked, data breach, malware? So my security testing will focus to cover those points, guys. My security testing will focus to cover those points, right? Next one, browser compatibility. Can my application, work on different browsers and all? Can my application work on different browsers? Because you have variety of browsers like Chrome, Edge, you know, um, Firefox, Safari. If these would be the four browsers, that would have been at least fine. But again, for all these browsers, we have different versions again, right? We have different versions. Now you cannot force any user to use one particular version of one particular browser. You can always say we are compatible above this version, but I cannot go and say to the user that you use only this version. No, right? So we have to do the browser compatibility testing and accessibility testing, right? For specially abled persons, everyone has a right to use computers. Now we are blessed, that we we can, see, we can hear, we can speak, right? Now there could be, specially abled persons, okay, differently abled persons who might not have that fortune, but they also have the right to use computers, to use internet, to use technology. So for them also the applications need to be accessible, guys. So if you all didn't know, then there is an area of testing known as accessibility testing, where it is tested like whether the application is accessible to different variety of users or not, guys. Okay, so majorly, these are the 5 different types of non-functional testing which we normally target in different projects. But in our training, our focus is on performance testing, right? In this training, our focus is on performance testing. Any queries, anyone till now? Any queries, anyone?
Uh, mm, we can do the all test on JMeter. Is it possible?
On JMeter, you can do performance testing, and to support your site reliability testing, you might need JMeter. But again, as I told, JMeter is for performance testing primarily. Okay, I am telling here that these are different types of non-functional testing, because in order to understand our performance testing, you should know that performance testing is a type of non-functional testing. So I just gave you an overview that what are the different types of non-functional testing. Now you will jump into performance testing. Okay, any other queries, anyone? Any other queries, anyone? Okay, so then why performance testing is required, guys? Why performance testing is required? Now you all would be having a question in mind that there is a lot of functionality testing being done, right? Functional testing is being done to verify the application whether it is working or not. Now, if my application is working, then that should be fine, right? Why should I go and do other types of testing? Okay, but as I told you, every test type has a different objective. Similarly, performance testing also has its own objective. That is where we are going to answer the question. Why performance testing? Performance testing is done to verify three important factors. Performance testing is done to verify three important factors, guys. One is speed, then scalability, and then reliability. Now, as the terms suggest, guys, speed. I need to verify, I need to validate, I need to check as a performance test engineer whether the speed of my application is good enough, whether my application responds fast, right? Whether my application responds fast, whether it is having good speed, because nowadays the users are very impatient, guys. The users are very impatient, and for every application there is a competitor out in the market, right? For every application there is a competitor in the market. Now, if one application does not perform up to the expectations of the customer, of the users, then it is highly probable that the users will jump to another competitor. So they are going to lose business, right? They're going to lose business. That is why speed of the application, the speed at which the application responds, is very, very critical. It is very, very important for the success of the business, for the success of the application. Here, all of you, any queries, anyone? So we need to do performance testing to verify the speed of the application. Speed of the application. Next, scalability. When I say about speed, my application can be accessed by different number of users, guys. My application can be accessed by one user. My application can be accessed by 100 users. My application can be accessed by millions of users also. Am I clear? Right. So we need to test the application with different user loads, different number of users. Now the question is, guys, am I going to test with, you know, means how do I know with how many number of users I need to do the test, right? With how many number of users I need to do the test? Anyone, any thoughts?
It depends on the nature of the applications. We cannot say. We always check with the our client that how many users are going to use this application. So according to that, we will check the load testing of our application, something like that. Because every application has a different natures. Some applications are public in nature, some are private in nature. So like that.
Perfect, very good. So it depends on the application, guys. With what number of users you want to test, it depends on the application. Again, as rightly mentioned, it has to be confirmed by the customer. Customer means the client for whom you are working. The client for whom you are working, they have to confirm that. So in a project, when you are going to work, your points of contacts like your business analyst, your business users, your developers, your solution architects, they are going to confirm the different the number of users with which you are going to do the test. Now that I have understood with how many users I have to do the test, now you all understand, you all will agree that investment in IT is a huge investment from any client, right? So whichever client is undergoing a project, they will have to invest a lot of money because there will be so many associates, so many resources working on a project. Today, suppose the project is getting delivered, and they are saying that my application is able to handle 10,000 users as on today. Now, if the application is getting developed, they are not going to develop the application every year. They will have to have a visibility, they have to have a vision that the application should handle you know n number of users during the next 5 years. So I need to have a visibility in the next 5 years, or in the next 4 years, or in the next 10 years, how many users are going to use my application. I need to have that prediction. Based on that, based on that, I need to check, right, how many users are going to use my application. Based on that, I need to verify whether my application can support those many users in the future or not. I cannot sit down and say, let those users come, let those many users visit my application, then I'll do my testing. No, because at that point of time, if the application fails, I again have to invest in my IT, right? So the plan normally which the customers have is, for performance testing, they want to verify the application is having good speed for the current number of users as well as future number of users. Now this number of users, volume of data, is normally called as volumetric, guys. Volumetric. So I need to check whether my application can support my current volumetric as well as future volumetric. If it is good, if it is doing very good with my current volumetry, but it is not able to cope up with the future volumetry, then I have a problem. Now this property, guys, the coping of the application with the future volumetric, is known as scalability. So I'm actually verifying over here whether my application can support the future volumetry. Can my application scale? Is my application scalable enough that it can support those many number of users in the future as well? Am I clear? So I'm checking speed, I'm checking scalability. Now just imagine that my application is having good speed, my application is scalable, but it is for a limited duration of time. For a limited duration of time. But if those number of users continue to use my application for a longer duration, if those many number of users continue to use my application for a long duration, and in that case, if my application fails, if my application does not respond, if the performance of my application is not good, then I cannot say that my application is reliable. I cannot say that my application is reliable. Clear, all of you? So that is why we measure, or our objective is to verify these three different factors: speed, scalability, as well as reliability. All these three are very, very important, guys. I'll take a pause here. Any queries, anyone? Any queries, anyone? Why we do performance testing? What is the need of performance testing? Okay, so in performance testing, we are going to use some common terminologies. We are going to use some common terminology. So during this training also, we are going to use those terms, right? So you need to know those terms. If you do not know those terminologies, it will be difficult for you to understand. That is why I am going to discuss the common terminologies which are used in performance testing, guys. First one is virtual user. Now we, you, me, everyone, we all are real users, right? We all are real users. Let's say we all are using a common application. We all are using a common application. So we are real users for the application. Now I want to test an application with 1 million users. For example, I want to test an application with 1 million users. Now if I have to do that test with real users, if I have to do that test with real users, just imagine, the size of the building which I have to, take on rent, or which I have to build in order to carry out my testing. And even if I have those many number of people, it will be very difficult for me to manage those as well, manage them as well, right? I cannot do my testing properly. Now these tools, therefore we have the tools to do the performance tests, to capture the metrics, right? Now these tools, when they test, they are also going to test with those many number of users. They are going to verify that if the application is used by n number of users, how the application is behaving. So they are going to basically simulate, right? The term is simulate. The testing tools, the performance testing tools are going to simulate the real users. And those users which are simulated, right, or which are created during the performance test, they will be called as virtual users. Virtual users, or we also call it as V user, or we also call it as threads in JMeter language. Okay, in JMeter language, remember, a virtual user will be called as a thread, guys, thread. Okay, next, response time. Very, very important, guys. Response time. Let me. So you all know the client server architecture, right? Client server architecture. This is my client, for example, and this is my server. So a user, right? A user is going to use the client machine, and the application will be hosted on the server, right? The application will be hosted on the server. My requests, my requests will go from the client to the server, right? My requests will go from the client to the server, and the server will process that request. Server will process that request, and then it will send back the response to the client. Now whenever you are using any application, any web application, for example, you are launching the URL, right? So when you are launching the URL, you are actually sending a request to the server. and that server is processing that request. And then when you are launching the URL, you are able to see the home page of that application on your browser, right? So the page which you are able to see on your browser, that is the response which is provided by the server to you. Here all of you, that is the response which the server provides to you. Okay, so here the server is going to process the request. Are all of you clear? Now when the request goes from the client to the server, it will take some time. Let's say that is x. The time which it takes is x, and then the server will take some time to process that request, right? The server will take some time to process that request, guys. Clear all of you? Clear? So server will take some time to process that request. Then let's say that is y, and it will take some time. The once the request is processed, the response will take some time to go from the server to the client. If you clear? Now remember what is response time. The time taken by the server to process the request, the time taken by server to process the request plus, now this information, guys, this response, this request, these all are information, right? So these informations is transferred in the form of data packets. The information is transferred in the form of data packets, right? Now when it is transferred in the form of data packets, the entire information does not get transferred at one go, right? The entire information does not get transferred at one go. So the different bytes will flow from the server to the client, and they will reach the client one after the another. So there is a term known as TTFB. TTFB, time to first byte. So the response will consist of so many bytes. The time taken by the first byte to reach from the server to the client, that I am representing as Z here. Clear all of you? That I am representing as Z here. Okay. So my response time will be basically the time taken by the server to process the request plus time taken by the first byte to reach from the server to the client. I'll repeat. Response time definition is, it is the summation of the time taken by the server to process the request plus, okay, it is basically the sum of the time taken by the server to process the request and the time taken by the first byte of the response to reach from the server to the client. Are all of you clear? That is Y plus Z. Response time is basically Y plus Z is equal to my response time. Am I clear, all of you? Any queries, anyone on this? Any queries, anyone on this? Okay, understood response time? So response time is a very critical metric. It is a very important metric which we measure from performance testing. Next is throughput, guys. Throughput. What is throughput? Okay. Now the figure which I showed you one request and one response. One request going from the client to the server, and the response of that request coming from the server to the client. But when continuously many users are using the application, there will be so many requests going to the server. from different clients. There will be so many requests going to the server from different clients. Now the rate at which, okay, the rate at which your server is processing those requests. Are you getting me? The amount of requests processed by the server, the amount of requests processed by the server per second or per minute or per hour can be called as your throughput. Are you getting me, guys? The amount of requests getting processed by the server is your throughput. Now, next one is request. I told you request is nothing but when a user does a user action on the client machine, a request originates from the client and it goes to the server. Now the request will have different information which we will discuss later in the details of HTTPS protocol, right? So I'll not take much time over here for that. Similarly, once the request goes to the server is going to process that request, and in return it is going to send back its response. Now, based on the request which has gone to the server, the response which is sent back from the server can be a successful response or it can be a failed response. Remember, guys, it can be a successful response or a failed response. Next one is transaction. What is a transaction? Now, I'll tell you one user journey or a business flow, guys. Okay, you have to, for example, purchase a product from an e-commerce application. You as a user have to purchase a product from an e-commerce application. What are you going to do? Anyone, please unmute yourself and speak.
We select the product, we do add to cart, then we do payment, and then accordingly we will process.
Okay, so you will directly select the product, huh? You are
No,
not
we
going
launch
to.
launch
Yes,
application.
see, you are a user. I told you are a user. Tell me what steps you are going to do. As you
Hit the
rightly
URL.
mentioned,
Hit
you
the
have to
URL.
launch. Yeah, you have to launch the application. Okay, then
Login.
okay,
Okay, and then click on
Product
product.
selection.
so you can search for your product, right? Then you select a particular product. You add it to the cart. You proceed to make the payment.
Payment.
Yeah, and you successfully do the payment, and your order
And
is placed.
log. Place.
Then you
Then
log
log out.
out from the application. All of you understood, guys? Means whatever, means from application to application the flow might be a bit different, but if I say it as a skeleton or a framework, it will remain more or less the same, right? So everyone as a user is going to do those steps, right? Those steps in order to do that purchase product user flow. Or anyone has any other thoughts, any other deviation? Now, as you told, you are going to launch, you are going to log in. Now, when you are going to do these steps, they are called as user actions, guys. They are called as user action. Remember, actions performed by the user on the client or on the browser, right? So, user action. Now, remember, whenever the user is doing any user action, and that user action, okay, that user action results results in an interaction with the server. A user action results in an interaction with the server. Whose interaction? Client's interaction. So any user action which results in an interaction of the client with the server will be called as a transaction. Very, very important, guys. Okay. Now, for example, you will tell me, can I give an example of a user action where I am not interacting with the server. Now, for example, when I'm when I am on the login page, I have to provide username, I have to provide password, then I have to click on the login button. Now when I am entering the username, when I am entering the password, I am not interacting with the server, guys, right? I am not interacting with the server. Only when I press the login button, then I will interact with the server. Am I clear, or anyone has any other thoughts? Are you understanding? The meaning of interaction with the server means the request will go to the server. Agree, all of you? But I have a question here then. Now when I'm entering the username, when I'm providing the password, I get some validation errors, right? So if there is no interaction happening with the server, how are the validations coming, guys? Or how am I getting the validation errors?
That will be client-side validation.
Perfect. That is
Client side.
client side validation. Okay. See, I'm trying to clear very fundamental things as well, so that you understand it clearly. Okay. So those are client side validations. Do not mistake it as server side. There is no request going to the server. We will see that, guys. When we discuss the browser, developer tool, we will see that. I'll prove to you. So when you are doing any user action which results in an interaction of the client with the server, then I'll call it as a transaction. Am I clear, all of you? Now multiple transactions will result in a business flow or a user journey. But sometimes there is a confusion. What confusion? Sometimes some customer they call the entire user journey as a transaction as well. Are you getting me? Like booking a flight, purchasing a product, the entire user journey, they will call it as transaction. So in your projects, whenever you see the term transaction, please clarify from your customer when they mean transaction, are they referring to each granular transaction or each granular user action, or they are referring to the whole user journey. Please note this in mind, guys. Okay. The next term is transactions per second. So this transactions per second is nothing but similar to throughput. Throughput, I told you, amount of requests processed by the server. Now when I say that amount of requests, so processed by the server per second. So each request will result in a response, right? Each request will result in a response. So transactions per second is nothing but the amount of transactions or amount of requests, okay, processed by the server per second is called as TPS. Very frequent term which you are going to see in performance testing. Okay, transactions per second. Any queries, anyone on this? Any queries, anyone? Any queries, anyone? So the next terms, iteration. Now you see I'm introducing another term known as iteration, guys. I told you about transaction. Now what is iteration? I told you user journey. User journey is your complete flow. Like as some of you told, right? Launch, login, select a product or search a product, select a product, add it to the cart, do the payment, make the order, and then log out. This is my entire user journey. So one complete flow, okay, one complete flow is known as one iteration. One complete flow is known as one iteration. Now why this iteration terminology is there, guys? Why it is important? Okay, when a real user is going to purchase a product, right? Approximately how much time will it take, guys, to purchase a product? Anyone? Approximately 5 minutes, 10 minutes
Yes.
on the higher side, right? But performance testing we normally do for 1 hours, 2 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, right? So if my one iteration will take only hardly 5 minutes, that on the higher side, what am I going to do for the rest of 2 hours or the rest of 1 hour 55 minutes? The point over here is, in performance testing we are actually putting the system under constant load, or it depends on the type of testing what we are doing, but we are putting the system under a considerable load for a particular duration of time, right? So we have to keep on doing the transactions, guys. We have to keep on doing the transactions for the entire test duration. So once one user journey is completed, I have to repeat that user journey. I have to repeat that user journey, so that, because here we are not doing functional testing, remember, it does not uh, matter which user is doing which transaction. My objective is that these many users are able to do these many number of transactions successfully per minute, per hour, or for the entire duration of the test. So I have to do multiple iterations for a particular user. Okay. So one complete flow. Okay, one complete flow is known as one iteration. Because we are going to do multiple iterations, we can also find what is the number of iterations per second. Okay. Next, think time. Very, very important term, think time. As the name suggests, guys, whenever you as a real user is using any application, okay, I think there is a query.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. If you do not have any query, kindly be on mute, please. Think time. When you as a real user is using, is there a query?
Yes, sir. Ashish is here. How can we calculate that transactions per second or iteration per second? Uh, any idea? Or using the JMeter? Any-
Using the JMeter. Okay,
Okay.
using the JMeter,
Mean
and there are some calculations also which I told you, if you remember yesterday, as workload model design, right? That is very, very important. You will get interview questions on that. So there are different formulas using which we can calculate that as well. But the number of transactions per second which is happening for our test, that we will get from JMeter. We are not going to calculate anything manually. Okay,
uh,
am I clear?
okay. 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 Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem. So then coming to think time, so when you or me as a real user is using any application, now you told the different steps, guys, like the launch, login, and all, right? So when you are using an application on the browser, you launch the application. As soon as you launch, are you directly going and logging in? Then as soon as you log in, you are searching the product. As soon as you search the product, you are selecting the product. As soon as you select the product, you are adding it to the cart. As soon as you are adding it to the cart, you are going to the payment. Guys, please be on mute, please. Let's not disturb the session. Thank you. So as soon as you launch, then you log in. As soon as you log in, you search the product. As soon as you search, you select the product. As soon as you select, you go to add it to the cart. As soon as you add it to the cart, you go to the payment page. Do you do like that, guys? Do you perform the operations in that manner?
No, there is some time delay.
All of you agree? Whenever you are using any application, there is always a delay between the different transactions or the user actions which you perform. And that delay could be intentional, that delay could be unintentional, but definitely there is a delay. there is a delay between the transactions. Am I clear? Now, as I told you, in performance testing, our objective is to simulate production behavior, to simulate real user behavior. Okay, that is why in performance testing, it is very important that we implement think time in our scripts. Okay, so what is this think time? This delay between the transactions. Okay, the delay, the elapsed time between the transactions is known as think time. Okay, it is known as think time. The user takes some time to think what next transaction has to be performed. Okay, very important term, guys. Next we have pacing. What is this pacing? I told you iteration, right? So when you want to have some delay between two iterations, when you want to have some delay between two iterations, that is known as pacing. So interview question, guys, what is the difference between think time and pacing? Okay, very important. What is the difference between think time and pacing? So the delay between the transactions is known as think time. The delay between the iterations is known as pacing. Next, network latency. Network latency. Now the figure which I showed to you, right? The figure which I showed to you, this request, this response, right? When they move from the client to the server, from server to the client, they go through a network. Now, due to the network also, there could be some impact on your performance, right? Whenever you are using any application on 4G, and whenever you are using any application on 5G, will there be a difference in performance or not? Will there be a difference in performance or not, guys?
Yes, there is
Yes.
difference.
There will be, right? So due to the network, we will have a factor for latency, right? Then next one is non-functional requirement. Like we get requirements for functional testing, similarly we will have non-functional requirements for performance testing, for non-functional testing. Okay, like my application should support 5,000 users. The application pages should load within 5 seconds. These are the kind of non-functional requirements. Test script and scenario. Now the user journey, the user flows, which will be in scope of our testing. We are going to develop the test scripts for them. We are going to develop the test script for them, right? Using JMeter or any other performance testing tool. So, like we have test cases in functional testing. Similarly, we will have test script in performance testing. Okay. And then the scenario, guys. Scenario means, do not get it confused with your user journey. Test scenario in this case is basically how you are going to execute your test. You have your test script, you have your users. How are you going to load those users? For how long you are going to run your test? Okay, how many users you are going to run your test with? So all those factors, you are going to design your test execution, right? You are going to design your test execution, so that is known as your test scenario. We are going to see them in details later. And then we have the term as load generator. So as the name suggests, this is going to generate the load. Now what is this? This is going to be a machine, guys. This is going to be a system, right? A machine from where you are going to generate the load. Load can be the number of users, load can be the volume of data, but in most of the cases it is the user load. Which user load? Virtual user load. Okay, virtual user load. Clear, all of you? With this I'll take a pause, as well as we'll stop the session for today. Any queries, anyone? Any queries, anyone?
Yeah, Chandra, are we going to get study material for this performance testing?
Whatever documents I'm sharing in this
Mm-hmm.
session, all those documents will be shared with you all. Okay.
Okay. Hi, Chandra.
Yeah.
So I just need to understand what are the clients?
What are the clients?
Yeah.
When you are using any application, now client means, are you talking about customer or this figure which I mentioned over here as client?
Yeah, this figure, about this figure. What is this client?
This is basically my client server architecture. This is a machine on which I have a browser. On my browser, I am accessing an application. So when you
Okay. So,
access that application, the browser is the client over here.
okay.
If it is a mobile device, your native application will be your client. If you are using your browser on your mobile device, that will be your client. So it will be a generic one. That is why I have not specified any browser or application. Rather, I am specifying as client, because I am
Okay. So
representing
basically,
the
browser is the
client
client.
server. Because I am representing client server. Yes, browser is your client.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Any other queries, anyone?
Chandra,
Yeah,
can you give a
how?
example with pacing?
One by one, please. Sorry.
Pacing. Uh, can
Pacing
you
is
give a
yeah. So like, for example, you are searching, you are purchasing a product, right? So the
Mhm.
complete flow you will do to purchase one product.
Yeah.
Then, as I told you, in my load test or in my performance test, basically I'm going to do a test for 2 hours, but my purchasing a product will hardly take 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. What am I going to do for the next remaining duration? I'm again going to purchase another product. I'm again going to purchase another product. So purchasing a product, it is one iteration. Now, if I want to provide any delay between the iterations, okay, if I want to
Okay.
provide the delay between the iterations, that is known as spacing. Any other
Okay.
queries? Maybe I'll take one more question for today and we'll stop the session.
Uh, yes, Chandra, I have one query. Uh, if I don't have any NFR, okay, there is a one
Mhm.
organization, they don't know about the performance testing, and they want to implement in their organization the performance testing, and they don't have any idea about the NFR, all these things. So how we can start, or you will be going to add this point in the next session or what?
Very good question. So I'll discuss this in my next session. Okay. It is actually there in
Okay,
my
thanks.
course. It is already there in my
Okay,
course. So I'll give the example and I'll explain that. But that is a very good question. So we'll discuss it in the next session. Okay.
okay, thank you so
Any
much.
other queries?
Is there any standard values, metric values for these, like a response time is 2 seconds or like that for all the
Yeah.
metrics?
So there are industry standards. Okay, there are industry standards. But again, from application to application, from customer to customer, the requirements will vary. So whatever requirements are given by your customer, you have to go with that. If they do not give, then you have to follow the industry standards.
So just we are comparing the expected and actual right here. So we are
Yes.
getting the actual
We are
result from
verifying.
JMeter
We
and
are verifying. Yeah, we are verifying whether our actual results meet our expectation or not.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll stop the session here today. Thank you all for joining. Have a good weekend.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.